everyone. I just wanted to make a video because I feel like God is calling me to share my story and my testimony, and this is very nerve-wracking. It's kind of good in theory, like, oh yeah, I can totally tell my story, but when actually I've been thinking about it, it's been really scary to be this open with people and vulnerable and just kind of share what's gone on in my life. And there's a lot to it. It's like, what parts do I share? What parts do I not share? I definitely want to tell my story from my perspective, but I don't want to talk badly about my family or kind of bring up things that might make them feel uncomfortable or embarrass them. That's not my intent. It's just something I feel like the Lord's laid on my heart because He has given me a story to tell, and I don't know who it's going to help, and I don't know who it's for, but I definitely feel that it's important because, I've gone through a lot in my life, and I've just asked God for years and years, why am I going through this? Why do I have to experience these things? They're so painful. I don't understand, God. Like, I just wish I could understand, and while I don't have that full understanding, I do feel like God asked me to stop asking why about over a year ago and instead change my vocabulary to say for who, to just change my focus on for who can I share this with, for who can it help, for who, so I just pray that my story will help somebody out there, that they will maybe just, my prayer is just to know God more through my story and feel hope. So I've just been praying, where do I start, Lord? So I just pray, Lord, please speak through me, give me the words, because there's just a lot and I don't know how to communicate it. So thank you for listening to that very long introduction. My story starts back when my mom and dad were married. They were married for about, I think, 11 years. After 8 years of marriage, they had my older sister. And then about 8 years after she was born, I was born. So we're 8 years apart. Unfortunately, about when I was 6 months old, they separated. My dad left and went back to where he grew up, and my mom was left with my sister and I. And so I don't have any memories of my dad growing up, while my older sister does have memories of my dad up until the time she was 8, I guess. And they were married a little bit before my mom, or before I was born. So anyhow, fast forward, when I was probably 5 or 6, my mom got remarried to a man. And, thankfully I don't have, well, I can't totally say that. I don't have bad memories of him, but I do, and I don't know how to express that. Shortly after they were married, my little sister was born. Yay! I just remember that time I was very excited to be having a little sister, and I just remember, I don't even know what to refer him to. It was my stepdad at the time saying, I couldn't sit on my mom's lap. Oh, why not? Because she's pregnant. But then after my sister was born, I couldn't hold her. There was kind of some weird behaviors, controlling behaviors. So when he would be away, my mom would sneak and let me hold my little sister. And I just remember having a couple pictures of me holding my sister and just being so happy, I could hold my sister. And sorry, I'm probably gonna cry through a lot of this. But shortly after that, he moved us out of state to where he grew up, and I don't remember a lot of that time. I was probably 6 or 7, but we moved across country to where his parents were, and we lived with his parents. And I remember my sister and I, my older sister, sleeping on the living room floor of his parents' house. And I don't remember a lot from that time other than kind of that odd behavior still going on, actually, even before we left, just like being forced to eat foods I didn't like, just some weird controlling behaviors there too. And anyway, fast forward, I do remember my mom and her husband at the time, my stepdad, they must have gotten an apartment or a house. I don't know if they were renting or if we owned it, but I remember just having moved in. And I remember my little sister was still in, like, little enough to need a crib, and they were still unpacking. And I just remember one day being outside sweeping on the sidewalk and hearing a lot of commotion inside, and I thought, oh my gosh, they must be laughing. There's a lot. I'm gonna go see. So I remember going inside and opening the door, and they weren't laughing, they were screaming. And apparently, I don't know, it was kind of to my right side, blocked by the refrigerator, but my stepdad was choking my older sister, and my mom had been putting together a crib at the time, like those little playpens, and it was made with metal bars, and she took and she hit him as hard as she could with this metal bar to keep him from choking my sister. And next thing I know, like, you know, things are kind of blurry, but we were at the police station and we were having to give an account of what had just happened. Fast forward through the story, things just deteriorated for us. My mom, because I guess he knew people in the town and had connections, and I don't know, but basically, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, things were just going bad between him and my mom, and we didn't have any support, and we were needing to get away from him. And where do you go when everybody in the town knows him and we have no support? So basically, I just remember, I don't know, at some point my stepdad had taken my little sister and we couldn't get to her. Like, I remember my mom trying to go to daycare, but he wouldn't drop her off at daycare, and we tried to go to his parents' house, and you know, we just couldn't get to her. And I remember my mom sold every single thing we had, and we packed up and we left without my sister, my little sister. So my older sister and I and my mom left the state and came back to Washington State, where we were before being moved. And you know, being 6 or 7 at the time, like, I didn't really understand. But looking back and kind of being older and wiser, like, that's, you know, we see that today, domestic dispute, and one person takes the kid. And anyway, I just remember that time being back home. Actually, getting back was quite difficult because we didn't have any money, and we stayed at shelters and a hotel once and again if we had money. But I remember staying at shelters all the way back to Washington State. And once we got back to Washington State, we did stay in a women's and children's shelter until we could get on our feet. And I remember meeting people at that shelter. My mom met one of her friends that she still is friends with, and I remember meeting a little girl and her boy, and I remember us being outside and playing, and she had this adorable, like, probably 2 or 3-year-old boy. I can't remember exactly, but we eventually did get into a low-income apartment, and I stayed there until I graduated high school. So then, yeah, here I was in this apartment, just kind of getting on our feet. I remember my older sister was there with us, and things were just very bad between my mom and my older sister, and they were getting into fights, and it was becoming physical and just not good. And my older sister ran away, and she didn't come back. And you know, I don't remember the timeline of all those things, but I remember her staying with friends, with different friends, kind of bouncing around. But I also remember my mom changing the locks and being like, she can't come back in. This is weird, you know, just like having to go through stuff like that. It's just like, so in a very short period of time, like I just have gone through a lot of losses. Like, didn't have my dad, which didn't make much of a difference at that time because I didn't know what I was losing. But, you know, imagine not having any memories with your dad. And then the second person, or the first male figure I have, like, kind of experience him as kind of like violent, and then not having my sister, and then not having my other sister. So just kind of a lot of losses in a very short period of time. So it was just me and my mom for quite a while. And I'm going to check the time of this video. I think I'm going to have to do it in parts so it doesn't get too long. So hang on.